Hello my friends. Today is a continuation of my last video that I posted on Tuesday. I'm going to be demoing and trying out the art supplies that I unboxed in that video. Paul Rubens sent me a big box of goodies and art supplies that I'm not really quite sure what everything is, but I am very grateful for being sent these supplies, and I wanted to actually make a painting with them. This is not a sponsored video. These were gifted, so I didn't pay for these supplies, but I will give you my honest thoughts and feedback. I swatched the small YouLan 12 half pan set because I wanted to see what the swatches looked like, and they are amazing. If you have a chance to purchase these at like a reasonable price, you definitely need to. They are such good quality. I'm very excited to travel with them, and I'm kind of like thinking about doing a little plein air date with myself so that I can take them out and about. The size is so convenient and the watercolors are such good quality. I love. I'm going to be focusing on using these large ceramic watercolors, reading the comments, and also after swatching them, they're just regular watercolors, not inks. It seems like they are this large because they are better for squirrel hair brushes so that they don't lose their shape. You don't really have to mess up the bristles very much putting them in a very small pan trying to pick up the paint. I swatched these quickly on my Canson XL watercolor paper just to see what the colors would look like and just to kind of get a feel of what I was getting myself into painting with these colors. The reason I was rubbing on the swatches was because I think I didn't properly clean that first brush and it was still a little gummy from the glue that keeps it in the point. So the paints were a little bit gummy putting them down. I was like, well, I don't know how I like this paint. I rubbed it to see if there was any chalkiness or transfer, and there was not. I didn't wash the brush well enough. And while I was trying to figure out if I should use these or the 12 pan set, I figured I might do a limited palette painting because I've never tried these specific watercolors, and I have tried the YouLan 24 pan set. I know I love those. I was kind of challenging myself with using a squirrel hair brush and a very limited palette to paint this piece today. I used the hot press watercolor pad and drew my sketch on with a graphite pencil and then just started painting. I don't use squirrel hair brushes in my regular watercolor paintings. The shape can create very loose, free marks that are not super detailed because of how flexible the bristles are. That being said, it comes to a super sharp point, so you can get some fine lines in your paintings. However, if I'm doing very fine line work, these are not the brushes that I would gravitate towards. So this painting for me was kind of a challenge in the sense that I'm not very used to working with squirrel hair brushes, but I very much enjoy the process of this piece. The combo of the hot press paper with the brushes and even these huge paint palettes was very rewarding because it required some problem solving in figuring out how to best use these art supplies. Working with a limited palette is a little challenging, but it's also great for stepping back and not using every single color in a larger paint palette and then having more muddy or less unified colors. I really just used the blue and the green, and I then decided to try to use the yellow right in the end because I hadn't used it at all, but I could have left it out. I think the painting would have been just as effective. Something that I didn't realize with those first swatches on the Canson paper, probably because these paints hadn't been activated by water before and because my brush was still a little gummy, the blue layers to be a super dark, almost black blue, and it's a beautiful color. On the Canson paper, it granulated, but on my Paul Rubens paper, as I'm looking at my painting, I don't see any granulation. I love painting with really deep blue watercolors. It's my very favorite color when it comes to watercolors, and so this particular shade of blue was so fun to work with because when it's diluted, it has such a different look than when it's very intense and deep and dark. I started to just do graphite line art for this sketch instead of working with a colored graphite lead or colored pencil when it comes to the line work. When I used to paint watercolor portraits, I would always use a pink or brown or a purple colored pencil to sketch out the outline so that the gray of the graphite pencil wouldn't get in the way of my colors and make the painting sort of look muddy. And I have realized that with the way I've been painting recently, I don't mind the graphite, that gray sketch underneath. I haven't been finding it has been making my paintings muddy, and I wonder if that's just because I have a different style that I'm using, or I'm also just not setting down huge washes of color. Like in this painting, I did set down the shadows, the blue shadows on the side of her face in large sections, but in general it's not like I painted in the whole of the white of the paper with a blue or green to begin with and then start going in with shading on the face. So maybe it's just the way that I'm changing it up a little bit. One thing that I enjoyed greatly about these squirrel hair brushes is how much water they hold. It can also be challenging to work with when it's just like almost overflowing with water. It's really nice to be able to use the same wash on basically the whole painting if I want to, because I don't have to dip back in and get more paint and water. It was something that I had to get used to, but being able to use the side of the brush to feather out the watercolor and keep it from having unwanted or strong watercolor edges, it was very nice to diffuse the paint and have it be a little bit more like a gradient versus too much watercolor texture on the face. That's something I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate, just the texture that watercolor gives when I want to paint a very smooth, blended, seamless transition on the face with the shadows. These squirrel hair brushes really helped me keep some edges blended and some of the edges like a little crisper. At the end of the painting process, I went in with a very thin, small, round brush to add some extra details, and I also went in with my Grumbacher titanium white acrylic paint. I'm not really sure if this is all the Grumbacher acrylic paints, but this titanium white dries to be pretty translucent, and so I'll have to do several layers of this for it to actually show up as white on a watercolor piece. I'm a big fan of being able to sort of correct some mistakes and add a little bit of life back into the painting using white paint. However, in this painting process, I didn't add any of my colored pencil or like gel pen or ink line work or details over top of the watercolor. I've seen several comments on my videos before from people saying that their personal preference for my watercolors and marker drawings is to see them without the line work and without the like gel pen and the ink and the colored pencil shading. I do think that those extra elements add a completed touch to some of my paintings, but for this piece, I didn't think it needed it. I think the piece was very strong and carried itself well without any extra elements. I like the simplicity of the piece, and I'm pretty proud of just the way that I executed it, considering that this is not something that's generally in my element. I'm not used to using squirrel hair brushes, and I have never tried these huge ceramic watercolor pans before. If you can get your hands on these and you like the look of them, I definitely recommend them for the quality, and I love this hot brush paper. I'm very excited to continue using it. It absorbs the water so well. No wrinkles, no warps. I mean, I love a watercolor block for not having to tape it down. I hope you enjoyed the process of this painting and enjoyed exploring these supplies with me. I'm very proud of the end result, all things considered, and I'd love to hear your opinions on the painting and the painting process, what you think of the supplies themselves. I'll try to have it all linked down in the description with all of these supplies. Paul Rubens' Amazon storefront is kind of hit or miss when it comes to consistency in what supplies are being sold. I feel like they at least do small batches when it comes to selling, at least in the US, because they're a Chinese company. I don't know how they sell in China. Like if you could just get them if you walked into an art supply store. I don't know. But that being said, if any of these supplies catch your eye and you have the opportunity to purchase them at a reasonable price, obviously, I definitely recommend them. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Let me know what kind of videos you want to see from me, because I post when I'm not super busy on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.